Her heels hit the tile before the door even shut behind her. She didn't see me at first. I was sitting in the dark, the TV on mute, just the flicker of some wildlife documentary painting shadows across the room. A gazelle being chased by something faster. Fitting. She was humming. Carefree. Like she hadn't just stepped out for dinner with another man. A bag of takeout hit the counter. Expensive. Truffle something. She didn't even bother hiding it. Then she saw it. On the coffee table. The envelope. She paused. The red wax seal. Still warm, probably. She reached for it slowly. Then stopped. Her eyes flicked to the couch. Only then did she realize I wasn't asleep upstairs. I was here. Waiting. You opened it? She asked. No, I said. Lie. She sat down across from me, too calmly. She crossed one leg over the other. Like it was a meeting. Not a moment before her life imploded. You know, I didn't expect you to be so theatrical, she said, trying to smile. A wax seal? Really? I didn't speak. Just pressed play. The TV didn't come on. It was the projector behind her. And on the wall, the footage began. Not graphic. Not violent. Just damning. Her. Him. The restaurant. The same one she swore she hated because it was too pretentious. The same dress she said she bought for a job interview. The same man she claimed she barely knew. They weren't kissing. Worse. They were laughing. Hands touching on wine glasses. Fingers tracing wrists. That kind of touch you only give someone you're addicted to. The film stopped exactly 12 seconds before they leaned in. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. That was private, she whispered. And this, I said, tossing a folded note onto the floor, is your schedule. For the next 30 days. You'll want to keep it. Her voice cracked. What is this? Some kind of punishment? No, I said. It's a favor. Because what she didn't know, yet, was that I hadn't told anyone. Not our families. Not her boss. Not the man's wife. But I would. In 30 days. Unless she stopped me. And she only had one way to try. She didn't touch the schedule. She just stared at it like it might catch fire if she moved too fast. It was handwritten. Meticulous. Times. Addresses. People she didn't recognize. Places she hadn't been to, or at least not while she thought I wasn't looking. You've been following me? She asked, her voice flat but her breathing shallow. No, I said. Others did. Her fingers twitched. That's when I realized something. She wasn't worried about the affair itself being discovered. She was worried about what I knew that she didn't think I could possibly know. I stood up, calm, took the projector remote from the table, and switched to the next file. Click. An audio file this time. His voice. I don't care if your husband finds out. He doesn't even seem like he's all there. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic. Her breath caught. Another click. Her voice now. Laughter. Then. He's too tired to notice. He just folds laundry and watches documentaries. I could come home with glitter in my hair, and he'd think it was from the kids' art project. She looked like she might throw up. Why are you doing this? She said. You told me not to wait up, I replied. You meant it. She blinked. Her eyes shifted, scanning the room, calculating her options. Fight, flight, or fake an apology. She was always good at the third one, twisting tears out of dry wells. I was going to tell you, she said, slow and shaky, like she'd just found a script mid-act. I just didn't know how. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't done. There are rules now, I said, placing a second envelope on the table, this one sealed in black. She didn't reach for it. She just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You'll get a copy of the footage, I told her. You'll watch it. Once. Then you'll follow the instructions inside. One for each week. They're not cruel. Just fair. She swallowed. And if I don't? I smiled for the first time in days. Then I show it to his wife. His coworkers. Your sister. Our daughter's teacher. The board you're trying to get elected to. Her face twisted. You'd ruin me. No, I said, slowly. You ruined you. I leaned closer. I'm giving you the option to undo it. Carefully. Publicly. Your own way. Her voice was paper thin. Why? And here's the part she truly didn't understand. Because I'm not like you, I said. I don't destroy things casually. I plan. For the first time since I met her, she looked terrified. Not because of what I had, but because she realized, finally, that I'd stopped being weak the moment she stopped pretending I mattered. There was a knock at the door. She flinched. I didn't move. That's for you. She stood, opened the door, and saw the first consequence. Not a lawyer. Not a cop. Worse. Her mother, holding a flash drive. No words. Just judgment. Heavy, cold, and permanent. Her mother didn't say a word when she stepped inside. She didn't have to. The way she stood, stiff, arms crossed over her coat, lips tight with a judgment that had been aging for years, said everything. And the flash drive in her palm glinted under the foyer light like a loaded weapon. "Where did you get that?" my wife asked. Her voice cracked. It cracked. That's when I knew something she didn't think I knew. Her mother was already suspicious. Had been, probably for a while. And this was confirmation. A conclusion. A reckoning. "I didn't watch it," her mother said. Her voice clipped, sharp like glass. "He said it wasn't for me. Said it was yours." The flash drive hit the marble countertop with a clack that echoed louder than it should have. No one moved. I stayed in the living room, arms crossed, letting her feel it. The collapse. The humiliation. Not from rage, from calculation. Her mother's presence wasn't revenge. It was structure. Proof that this wouldn't be hidden in whispers and behind closed doors. No, this would unfold in stages. Carefully. Truthfully. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" her mother added. "You were practically glowing every time you left the house. What did you think you looked like? A teenager." My wife looked like she was shrinking under her own skin. I almost felt bad. Almost. She tried the angle I expected. "I didn't plan it," she said. "It wasn't supposed to happen." "I didn't mean." "No," I interrupted, calmly stepping into the light. "But you meant to lie. Every night. Every morning. That was the choice." She turned to me then, eyes glassy. "And what? This is justice." I tilted my head. "You think this is justice? This is me giving you the opportunity to bury it on your own terms." Her mother narrowed her eyes. "Bury what?" "Silence. The kind that splits seconds wide open." I let it hang. I let her stand in it, ankle deep in the truth she'd worked so hard to pretend didn't exist. Then, finally, she broke. "I'll do it," she whispered. Her mother looked at her, then at me. "Do what?" "She's going to tell the truth," I said. "One piece at a time. She's going to come clean. Not to everyone. Not all at once. But to the people who need to know. The ones she's lied to the most. And she's going to do it without blaming alcohol or stress or loneliness. No therapy excuses. No spiritual retreats. Just truth. And if she doesn't," her mother asked, folding her arms tighter, "then the flash drive goes public," I said, walking over to retrieve it, slipping it into my pocket. "And the photos. And the texts. All of it. No edits." My wife was quiet. She was doing math in her head. Risk, timing, reputation. She was a strategist by trade. A publicist. This was probably the first time she'd faced a scandal she couldn't spin. She whispered something then, so low, I almost didn't hear it. "He's not going to stop calling." Her mother's eyebrows lifted. "Who?" My wife didn't answer. I knew, though. The man. Him. The one she thought she'd leave me for. The one she thought would make her feel alive again. The one whose wife, as of 10 hours ago, had also received an unmarked envelope on her doorstep. "I blocked him," she muttered. "But he's calling from different numbers." "Let him," I said. "He's not your problem anymore." Her hands were shaking. The first real crack. Not panic, shame. Somewhere in the deep part of her that still remembered who she used to be. "I'll do it," she said again. "I'll start tomorrow." "No," I said. "You'll start tonight." She looked at her mother. Then back at me. "Who first?" she whispered. I didn't even pause. "Our daughter." Her mother gasped. My wife froze. And for the first time in the entire unraveling of this story, she cried. Not tears for me, but for the version of herself she could no longer protect. She cried like someone trying not to. Shoulders trembling, but jaw clenched tight. No sobbing. Just silent collapse. Her mother stepped forward. Instinct, I guess, but I raised my hand gently. Not to stop her, but to say, let her sit in it. Let her feel the cost of everything she built and burned. We stood there for a full minute, just breathing, just listening to the house groan and the clock tick louder than it had in years. Then I turned. She's upstairs, I said, still awake. Homework. Her mother looked between us. You can't mean. She has questions, I said. She's had them for weeks. She may not know exactly what's happening, but she knows something's wrong. Kids always do. They're like animals before storms. My wife wiped her cheeks. Her mascara had smudged into half-moons under her eyes. What am I supposed to say? She whispered. What do you want me to say? Something that isn't a lie, I said. For once. She stood slowly. legs stiff, like they didn't want to carry her where she needed to go. The stairs loomed ahead of her like a mountain. She paused at the bottom. I didn't follow. I heard each creak of the step, every one louder than the last. When her voice came, it was muffled, soft. Then our daughter's voice, sharper, confused. A moment of silence. Then the start of something that sounded too much like a confession and not enough like an apology. I stepped outside onto the porch and closed the door behind me. The autumn air slapped me in the face, cold, real, unforgiving. I welcomed it. That's when I noticed the car, parked across the street. Lights off. Engine off. Just sitting there. It was him. It had to be. I walked down the steps slowly, hands in my jacket pockets. I didn't run. I didn't shout. Just crossed the lawn like I was heading to get the mail. As I got closer, the window rolled down. He didn't say a word at first. Neither did I. I looked at him, mid-30s maybe. Too much cologne still clinging to his shirt. Greasy confidence behind expensive glasses. The kind of man who thinks charisma is a shortcut for character. "You're Everett, right?" he asked. I didn't answer. "She told me you were passive." Still didn't speak. He smirked. Guess she was wrong. I leaned on the hood. "I'm going to say this once," I said. "And you're going to listen. You're not part of her story anymore. Whatever fantasy she sold you, it's over. She's going to fix what she broke. Privately. Thoroughly. And you're going to disappear." He tilted his head. "You think you can control that?" "No," I said. "But I can control what happens next if you don't." He laughed. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's a reality. There's a folder on your boss's desk. It arrived this morning. Sealed. Untouched. And unless you drive away in the next 30 seconds, he's going to open it tomorrow." His smile faded. "There's nothing illegal in it," I added. "Just context." The passenger in his car shifted. I hadn't even noticed someone was there. A woman. Maybe a friend. Maybe not. She looked uncomfortable. Like she knew something she shouldn't. He turned the key. "I loved her, you know," he muttered. "I'm sure you did," I said, stepping back. "So did I. But love isn't what you say when you're tearing someone in half." He didn't reply. He pulled away. No tires squealing. Just slow, quiet surrender. I walked back to the house. The porch light flickered overhead like even it wasn't sure whose side it was on. I stepped inside just in time to see our daughter coming down the stairs. Her eyes were swollen. She walked past her mother without a word and hugged me. Tight. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. She already knew who was still standing and who wasn't. The next morning, the house felt hollow. Not quiet. Empty. Even the clocks ticked softer, as if they didn't want to interrupt whatever remained of the silence from last night. I heard her downstairs, pacing. Not on the phone, not cleaning, just walking. I think she didn't know what to do with herself without the lies to tend to. She didn't speak to me. Not when I entered the kitchen. Not when I poured coffee. Not even when I slid her phone across the table, the one I found tucked under a hoodie in the back of her car, powered off, a second number she never gave me. I didn't need to say anything. The look in her eyes said she already knew I'd found it. That was the thing about people like her. When you caught them in the lie, they didn't panic. They calculated. They adjusted. They stayed just one step behind the truth and hoped you'd stop chasing. But I wasn't chasing anymore. I was clearing the wreckage. Later that afternoon, while she was upstairs with our daughter, I pulled down a box from the hall closet. It had been taped shut. Not labeled. Not dusty either. It hadn't been there long. I cut it open. Inside were photos. Dozens. Not of him. Of her. Just her. Restaurant selfies. Hotel room mirrors. Dim lighting. Same poses. Same look, head tilted, lips barely parted. And the worst part? They were all sent photos. Screenshots from conversations. The captions were still there. "He still thinks I'm at work. Wish I was with you right now. You're all I think about." Different dates. Same tone. Like she'd memorized a script and recited it to every man who made her feel seen. This wasn't one affair. This wasn't even two. There were at least 4 names in the folder on her cloud drive. I hadn't opened the conversations. I didn't need to. I had enough. But something still didn't make sense. She wasn't addicted to anyone in particular. She wasn't in love with any of them. She was addicted to the attention, the performance, the secrecy. It was like she'd built a second identity just to survive the one she had with me. And in some twisted way, I got it. I wasn't exciting. I wasn't dangerous. I didn't sweep her off her feet anymore. I folded clothes. I kept schedules. I made the same joke every time the dog farted. I was dependable, predictable, but I didn't deserve to be erased. I put the photos back in the box and resealed it. Wrote a name on the top, Teresa, her therapist. The one she only saw after her panic attacks. The same woman she once swore actually helps me feel real again. That was my next step. No blackmail. No threats. Just truth, handed to someone trained to see through denial. When I told her, she went pale. "You're sending it to her?" she said, gripping the edge of the sink. "Yes," I said. "She should know what kind of healing you actually need." "You're trying to punish me." "No," I said. "I'm trying to save whatever version of you still remembers what it means to be honest." She stared at me, then turned, walked out of the room, and slammed the door to our bedroom. I didn't follow. Instead, I sat on the couch and opened the old family laptop, the one I hadn't used since before she changed the passwords. And there it was. Her email, still logged in. A folder labeled Drafts. Dozens of unsent letters. To me. To herself. To the man she almost left for. I opened the most recent one. It started with, "If you're reading this, it means I didn't tell you in time." What followed wasn't an apology. It was a confession of fear. Not of being caught, of being forgotten. She wrote about feeling invisible. About walking through our house like a guest. About choosing the affairs not for love, but for noise, because silence, she said, was louder than betrayal. And in that moment, for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger. I felt hollow. Because I finally understood. She didn't just destroy us. She destroyed herself trying to feel alive. And I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to help her rebuild, or just walk away before she took the rest of me down with her. That night, we ate in silence. Just me, her, and our daughter, who kept her eyes on her plate the entire time, quietly pushing peas across mashed potatoes without ever lifting her fork. The television was off. The lights were too bright. Every scrape of a chair, every clang of silverware, echoed like glass shattering in a church. I tried not to look at my wife. She tried not to look at me. And yet, we were orbiting the same burning star, the truth that nothing between us was untouched anymore. Not the food. Not the walls. Not the child caught between our ghosts. I told Mrs. Ellsworth, my wife said suddenly, her voice so low I wasn't sure our daughter even heard it. At the office. I told her I'd be stepping away from the fundraising project. I said I needed time. Family time. I didn't nod. I didn't answer. Because for the first time, she wasn't saying it for me. She was saying it for our daughter. She wanted to be seen trying. But that wasn't how this worked anymore. After dinner, our daughter went upstairs. I watched her stop halfway, hand on the banister, as if she might say something. She didn't. She just disappeared around the corner. The moment she did, my wife turned to me. "I read them," she said. I knew what she meant. The letters. The drafts. The unsent apologies buried in her inbox like rotten fruit at the back of the fridge. I didn't ask how they made her feel. I didn't care. She took a slow breath, then added, "There's one you didn't read." I looked up for the first time. "It's not in the drafts," she continued. "It's printed. Handwritten. It's in the nightstand. I wrote it the day before our anniversary. The day I canceled dinner and said I had food poisoning. I remembered that night. I remembered sitting in the parking lot of the restaurant alone for 43 minutes, still holding the reservation, telling myself maybe she'd show. Maybe she'd come late. Maybe she just needed time. Instead, she'd spent that night 2 towns over. At a rooftop bar. With him. "I wrote it," she said, eyes glassy. Then I tore it up. I couldn't say the words out loud. I was afraid if I did, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from leaving. She stood slowly, as if moving too fast might trigger something in the air. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old. Worn. Like it had been handled 100 times but never opened. "I taped it back together," she said. "I've read it 1,000 times. But you never have." She set it on the table between us and left the room. I sat there, staring at it, not touching it, because I didn't want to know if it said she loved me, or pitied me, or worse, nothing at all. When I finally unfolded it, I noticed the writing was uneven. Some parts were rewritten over correction fluid. Some letters shook, others didn't. But one paragraph burned into me. "I don't miss the man you used to be. I miss the way I used to look at you. I miss wanting to be home. I miss that feeling when you'd walk in the door and it felt like someone turned on the lights in the room. And now, I feel like I'm always sitting in the dark, even when you're right next to me. And I don't know how to come back to you without first leaving everything." The letter didn't absolve her. It didn't apologize for what came next. It was just a map of how far she'd gone before even stepping out the door. I folded it once, then again, and when I looked up, she was standing in the hallway, watching me. Her eyes said, "Well?" Mine said, "Too late." Because here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. Sometimes it's not the lies or the infidelity that destroy the relationship. It's the moment you realize the other person stopped believing you were worth the truth a long time ago. And nothing written on paper could fix that. I didn't sleep that night. She did. I could hear her breathing shift after 2 a.m. It used to calm me. Not anymore. Now it felt like I was sharing a bed with a stranger who thought nothing could touch her once the lights went out. I lay there and stared at the ceiling, counting every faint tick of the old pipes, every ghost in the corners. At some point I stopped counting. Instead, I remembered something she'd forgotten. A Monday night, 6 years ago. Before we had Junie. Before we had whatever this marriage had become. It had rained. Hard. Our power went out halfway through dinner, and we ended up lighting candles in the kitchen. She pulled out a bottle of cheap wine and asked if I wanted to play cards by candlelight. We played Go Fish like idiots. She laughed so loud it startled the cat. And then, out of nowhere, she leaned over the table and whispered, "If we lose all this one day, the house, the jobs, everything, promise me you'll still play cards with me in the dark." I promised her. And for years, I kept that promise. Until I realized she stopped asking to play. Stopped lighting candles. Stopped sitting in the dark with me. She just left, long before her body did. By morning, the house was too quiet again. I poured coffee and sat by the window. When she came down, she was dressed for work, even though she wasn't going. She was always like that. Armor first, emotion second. She noticed the letter wasn't on the table anymore. "Did you read it?" she asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I asked something else. "Do you remember Go Fish?" She blinked. "What?" 6 years ago. Power outage. You had that awful peach wine. You said, if we lost everything, you wanted me to still play cards in the dark. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "You don't remember," I said quietly. She stepped closer. I think I do, now that you mention it. But it was a lie. You don't forget promises like that. You only forget them when they stop mattering. I stood and handed her a manila folder. She didn't ask what was inside. She knew. It was everything. The names. The messages. The nights. The receipts. The hotel dates that didn't match her calendar. Her web of stories turned to ash on pages she'd never be able to burn. "I'm giving you one final choice," I said. "You either tell the truth to the people who still believe in you, your board, your friends, the community you're trying to serve, or I send this. To all of them. Without warning." She was trembling again. "You're trying to ruin me." "No," I said. "I'm trying to make sure I'm not the only one who has to live with the real version of you." Then I walked out. Not out the door, just away from her. To the backyard. And that's where I stayed for nearly an hour. Breathing in the cold. Watching the trees sway. Trying to remember what peace used to feel like. When I came back inside, she was on the floor in the hallway. Holding the folder. Shaking. "I called them," she said without looking up. "The board. I told them I needed to speak, that there's something they should hear from me directly. I don't know what I'll say. I just know I'm going to say it." I stood there, unsure whether to believe her. But she looked up, and for the first time since all of this started, I saw no defense in her eyes. Only terror. Real, naked terror. Of being known. Of being seen without the mask. And part of me wanted to comfort her. But a louder part whispered, "Let her feel it. Let her finally feel everything you did." And so I turned away. Again. Because you can only carry someone so far before they become the reason you drown. The day she told the truth, it rained. Not a dramatic storm. Just a soft, steady drizzle, the kind that makes everything outside look like it's under glass. She stood in front of the community board, not a courtroom, not a church. Just 12 people who had trusted her with grants, local events, school outreach. Some had known her for a decade. Some only a few months. But they all listened. She didn't cry. She didn't deflect. She told them she had betrayed her marriage, her position, and most of all, her sense of self. That she was stepping down, indefinitely. That she needed time to become someone worth trusting again, not just professionally, but as a human being. When she walked out of that room, she didn't look broken. She looked stripped down to bone. But her chin was up. She didn't ask for praise. She didn't look for approval. She simply said to me, in the parking lot, "Thank you for forcing me to see myself." I nodded. Nothing more. For the next few days, the house was quiet, but no longer haunted. She cooked dinner. sat with our daughter for homework, walked the dog in the evening. Not because she wanted to prove anything, but because she needed routine to heal. One evening, I came home late from work. The sun had just vanished behind the trees. I stepped inside expecting darkness, but the hallway light was on. And beside it, a deck of cards sat on the hallway table. Go fish. 2 glasses of cheap peach wine next to it. She was sitting on the floor, waiting, not smiling. Just there. Present. I don't expect anything from you, she said. I just want to play cards again. Not for what we had, but for what we forgot. I stood still, and for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not forgetting, but air, space, the freedom to sit down without feeling like I was surrendering. I put my keys down, sat across from her, and said, "Got any threes?" She smiled. Not wide, not perfect, but real. And as we played, with no music, no phones, no masks, I realized something. Maybe the story wasn't about betrayal after all. Maybe it was about waking up. Finally, together or not, we were no longer lying in the dark. We were playing cards again.